Sandra, it's so nice to sit down and talk to you today and learn more about Biz Wine Down and P3 Consulting. Um, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into entrepreneurship?
Sure. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Gosh, it was such a long time ago now. I was very much inspired by my parents. They started their first business when I was 4 years old, and I was an only child for many years. So I would sit in on meetings, and all that kind of thing. Grew up in the back of a restaurant, but over the years, um, I just was able to see the impact of what owning your own business meant. And as I continued my education and those things, well, you kind of learn what you shouldn't do too.
Yeah.
And especially now, I've been coaching and consulting and building businesses and selling them for, gosh, 30 years now. And I know what business can do to people, and I know what it can do for people.
And when you say you know what business can do for people and do to people, what does that mean? Like, what is, where do people go wrong with that statement a lot of times?
Well, I think when somebody starts a business, they see the positivity, right? They want that success, they want that accomplishment, and the financial means, of course, too. Um, those are all great things, but to a certain extent, you have to give up to get. That's just the way life is. And one of the things that we really work very closely with our clients, and it's really become kind of a mainstay in our organization, is to find that balance. We're always trying to strike a balance. So part of that is, business education, being more crystal clear about the goals, the objectives, how you do business, those types of things, but balancing that out with the fun of entrepreneurship, the special times with friends and family. Being able to strike that balance becomes critical. In the world of entrepreneurship, we are too much on an island by ourselves, and the P3 organization and Biz Wine Down is all designed to change that dynamic.
Yeah, that makes sense because sometimes as an entrepreneur, as I am one as well, like I I miss having coworkers. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've pretty much been self-employed since you've been working, but I spent almost 15 years in corporate. So it's like I had coworkers or other managers or directors that I could talk to and complain, and everything wasn't on you, the weight of the business. And a lot of people don't understand entrepreneurship. They don't understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, and we get caught in that middle road. And for you, because you have started your career as an entrepreneur and you've worked with entrepreneurs and been around them for a very long time, what are some of the challenges that you've actually seen when consulting them? You've built a few businesses, you've sold, worked with your family. What are some things that you've seen that have actually worked to get entrepreneurs out of their own head and collaborating and building community?
Well, the first thing is really getting the ideas out of their head, quite
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
Um, but getting crystal clear on the goals and the objectives. That is absolutely foundationally one of the most important things that I can do as a coach and consultant
hmm
is really pull it out of them in what they really, really, really want out of it.
And when you say pulling it out, what does pulling out look like for you? What
Well,
what what is start? What was the first strategy that made you be like, oh, let me try this another way?
yeah, it's interesting. So one of the overall methodologies that we use is along the lines of Lean and Six Sigma, right? And that is really all about process improvement. And there's something called the five whys. So when I ask somebody, tell me about the goals and the objectives of your business. Well, why is that important to you? Well, tell me more. Why is that important to you? You ask why five times, and by the time you get to the fifth why, you're ultimately right there on the cusp of really understanding why something is the way it is.
That's so wow. That's so true because it's not just business. If you apply that methodology to any aspect
Any
of life,
relationship that you
yeah.
have.
And I think sometimes we forget that business is a relationship, and it's intimate. It's just not the same love languages as your personal family love lives, but it is a love language.
It absolutely is. And it just is like you have different dynamics in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Think around, Thanksgiving table.
Mm-hmm.
Some people dread Thanksgiving because of different dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in business, it's very much the same. Is the personalities are all very different, and those that are really successful in entrepreneurship understand the differences of the dynamic, and they're intuitive enough to be able to pull out the key variables within each one of those personalities that it's kind of like the little golden nugget for whatever it is. If they're hiring someone for marketing, well, what does that person, what is that person like? What's that personality like?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes back to get the right people on the bus and then get them in the right seats on the bus.
Absolutely. And it changes over time.
Absolutely.
That this school bus that you started with before might end up being like a whole like charter bus at the end, like 5 years in or even 3 years in. And that's where people kind of get lost, right, in the minutia.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so with that comes with like when they get lost, it's an issue of control.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And a lot of it stems because they're usually not very clear
Mm-hmm.
on the path forward.
Mm-hmm.
They're not clear to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not clear on the direction, then you can't lead. Right? And if you're not a leader by nature anyway, now that frustration is building.
Yep.
So, it's really very foundational in how all those things got created.
Mm-hmm.
But before you can have the grand things of the marketing and the this and the that, well, you really have to get clear on what this business is, why does it function, how does it function, what's its overall objective, and that has to stay paramount for every single movement going forward. Not to say that it doesn't ebb and flow, because it certainly will. No 2 days in business is the same. So you do have to have that variable, but when push comes to shove, get right back on that path and keep moving forward.
I really like that. And it's kind of like we talked a little earlier on a different segment about relinquishing control.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of entrepreneurs don't know how to do that. And to the analogy of from the yellow school bus to a mega charter bus, there are stages of relinquishing control. Um, have you seen people successfully go from the school bus to a charter bus without relinquishing control? Or is it just a standard ideology that if you want to scale, you have to relinquish control?
Yes, if you want to scale, and even if you are a small business owner and you don't want to go to that entrepreneurial space, there's nothing wrong with that. But growth is inevitable in business. You cannot stay stagnant in business.
Yep.
The world around you moves fast, and it's moving faster every single year.
Yep. And as trends change and business is moving, what is it what does it mean to scale? I think people get that confused. And what does it take to scale? I think people really want it. They're like, I want to make millions. I've run into entrepreneurs that are like, I want to be a multi-million dollar company. I want to make X, Y, and Z, and I want to do this and that, and I'm totally, okay with people coming into the business. But then when it really happens,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a complete nightmare sometimes because the person, there's a gap in what they want versus what they're willing to give up.
Absolutely.
And how have you seen the transition be a little smoother? And what are some ways that people can consider from visionary to execution how to scale their business?
A lot of what we talked about today is really very foundational. And when a business has that strong foundation, it's like building a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
You level the land, you put in the concrete, you balance it out, you build up the walls, all those kinds of things. Business grows in stages, and each stage has to be just as solid as the previous stage.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes from clarity. It comes from having systems in place. It comes from creating duplicatable tasks
Mm-hmm.
so that you can have consistent quality. But it also comes from the ability to be able to create these things in a very hands-off way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're always the one doing it, then you're not giving everybody around you an opportunity to grow and develop with you.
Do you think people really want people to grow and develop with them?
If they want to be successful in business, because there's no getting away from that.
Do you think people have, do you think it's a competency piece where they are not confident within themselves to lead others?
Yes, very often.
And do you think that goes back to ego, or do you think because some people, you know, might ideally want to build a team,
Mm-hmm.
but when you have to really build a team, there could be people that are legitimately smarter than you in a space. And do you think that creates some dissonance within that entrepreneur or leader? Or I don't know if I'm asking the right question.
No, I think it's a great question you're
Okay.
asking.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. To be honest with you, to be successful as an entrepreneur, you do have to have an ego.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
That's what fuels you.
Mm-hmm.
However, you also have to respect the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an emotional competence. I think that goes to our lack of confidence, somebody's lack of self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not clear and they're not confident about how to go about something, and somebody in their organization, or maybe not in their organization, but they're approached by someone who in their mind has that level of competence, they may take it as a threat.
That's the threat is the word I was looking for. Yeah, threat.
But for that particular business to grow, you actually want that to happen. Let me clarify.
Yeah.
From
Some threats aren't bad.
Right.
Essentially. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What we perceive is our reality, but what we perceive isn't always real.
That is very true. And some threats are to help us change and grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So an entrepreneur who really can be and wants to be, has the ability to be an entrepreneur, is someone who would embrace someone around him. We're all good at something, right? Whether it be leadership or sales or marketing or finance or whatever the dynamic is, we're all good at certain aspects of business. And then there are other aspects of business that we're probably not that good at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's just reality.
I mean, it's literally impossible for one person to know everything about the business.
Absolutely.
Especially as you grow, because you need experts in key areas of the business.
Absolutely. So for a young entrepreneur, yes, continue to focus in on what you do exceptionally well. And as soon as you have the opportunity, you hire for those areas that you may lack.
Yep.
But get clear on who you want, why you want them, and what you're willing to do.
Yep.
You have to know you inside and out before they would be willing to embrace that person.
Yep.
If they can do that, that's creating a team. That's balancing out the scale. And when the scales are balanced, now you have that solid foundation we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now you actually have the ability to consider scaling.
I like that. Yeah, I agree. And it makes a lot of sense with. I'm a firm believer that we hear all this. Oh, 90% of businesses fail or something. It's a very high number.
Very high
and
number.
it fluctuates, but it's between like I think 85 and 90% of businesses fail after 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first year 50% fail. I don't really think it's the idea of the products a lot of times. I think it's the people. And I think it stems from the person that started it all the way to how they hire, even major companies like Sears. They
Yeah.
could have literally just been Amazon, but the mindset of their leadership caused for them to fail. Blockbuster. So it's not something that we just see in small business. We see it in major corporations.
Yeah.
Where the mindset of someone can really hurt the business. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's absolutely true. And it shows itself over and over and over again. And my concern is that we're not learning from the mistakes.
No.
And that's really one of the foundational elements of what P3 and Profit Builder is all about.
Yep.
Is providing that business education for those that are willing to learn and grow.
Yep. I love that because one of the things, and it's digestible,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's information that they can apply and build community around without feeling the threat per se, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was an interesting study I saw. I believe it was a case study with Case Western talking about egos and entrepreneurship. And the study was talking about social mobility and male and female dynamics when it comes to entrepreneurship. One of the statistics said that the more educated someone is, the least likely they will become an entrepreneur and have a higher chance of failing as an entrepreneur because of the mobility that they've already gotten from corporate and getting their master's while in a corporate function or a company function.
Mm-hmm.
The study also went on to say that the more men are entrepreneurs because of their ego. And their ego allows for them to fail and fail and fail forward over and over again. But women have had a hard time being able to do that because in our society, women have an empathy a little different than men. So their ego doesn't get in the way of them. It hurts them essentially not having a stronger ego being an entrepreneur. So when it comes to social mobility, have you seen a difference in a lot of entrepreneurs that were in corporate for a while and came out versus the people that were like you? You started as self-employed and went straight into entrepreneurship, school of hard knocks. Have you seen a difference in those dynamics, and have you seen a difference in female entrepreneurs versus male entrepreneurs?
That's a really, really interesting case study for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you were
It's hilarious. The whole thing is really funny too, just reading it.
As you were describing it, there were so many thoughts that were going through my mind at the same time. If they actually looked at entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
right, you will find that very, very few of them have an MBA.
Right.
Very few do.
Yeah.
It takes someone very special to be able to walk away from that comfort of corporate life to go into that world of small business and entrepreneurship.
And they said that in the case study, it stated that at a certain level, an executive from director through C-suite, you're making more as an entrepreneurs. There's very few that make that level of money.
That's very true.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it's hard. And C suite directors become entrepreneurs depending on their corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not enough of a sell for people to leave their comfort to be able to become an entrepreneur and take the risks that come with it.
I'm not even sure if it's the money thing. Now, granted, at that
I
level,
agree.
they're probably 6, 7 figures, so
Yeah.
that's hard to walk away from. That's very true. But I think it goes very much back to the personality.
I would
Right?
agree. Yeah.
I don't know that, yes, education plays a part, right? Because that creates our habits as a human,
Uh-huh.
in by our experiences and those
Yep.
types of things. So if your experience is through that educational space, right? And then you go on for your MBA and your doctorate and all those kinds of things. Well, now you're used to a world of structure.
Yep. Yep.
And to walk away from that world of structure, I think that's a personality
And I would agree
in
with
many
you.
elements, right?
I agree because I don't think it's as much about money as it is the safety or the perceived safety
Absolutely. And that was
of
the other thought
corporate
that I had is
and business have it working for someone else.
the one thing that I say to all of the all of the students and the coaches, or the coaches that I work with and the clients that we work with, is you have to have confidence in your own ability. You have to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that, you depend on you. You're not going to let you down.
That's very true.
But
It's mindset.
it is. It's 100% mindset. It's grit. It's tenacity. It's all those little, kick phrases and all that kind of thing. But when it's all said and done, it's you in a corporate environment. You are at the mercy of whoever is over your head, right? Up to the CEO, up to the board of directors. You hope and pray on the daily that they do things the right way for the greater good. But you don't know that they are. We've seen it how many times now?
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned before, Sears, they had the opportunity, but they didn't take it.
Yep.
My son's grandfather was with Sears for his entire career. Started sweeping the floors when he was just a boy,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up in the tower in a senior position.
I believe it. I mean,
But that's how life was back then.
yeah.
So through
You don't see that as much now, but you see
through
it in
corporate downsizing, though,
right.
now people have walked away from those jobs.
You see entrepreneurs like that though. These
You
young
do.
kids. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So the environment now, the business environment, is allowing for more and more entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Social media, working from home,
Digital tech, the tech space, all of that.
all of that.
Yeah.
It's allowing for our economy as a whole. A lot of people don't realize that the recovery of our economy has historically always been because of small business, because we have
it makes sense.
We have the ability to move faster.
It's transactional. Yeah. And it's our run rate business for the US economy.
Right.
Literally. And most people are employed by small business. And I think sometimes people don't realize that small business is like $100 million company. I think like mid-market doesn't even begin until like 150, 200 million.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. But if you think about it, when you have $1 billion company invested right, you can get to $1 billion pretty fast with the right.
I would say this. Once you hit your first $1 million, you'll never go back.
Yes. Ever.
You will never go back.
Yes.
When you hit that $10 million, your life will dramatically change, and everything that you thought you knew, you're starting from ground zero again. There's those monumental growth spurts in business where it literally changes the dynamic of what you did yesterday.
So let's talk. I'm curious. Let's talk about the $10 million mark, right? Because I think sometimes people get excited to get to the million, but there's the 5 and there's the 10.
Million doesn't buy what it used to.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I think people think that because you have $1 million, you take home $1 million, and that's not the reality. So let's talk about that $10 threshold, $10 million threshold. What do you think changes for people at that stage? What has been your experience dealing with people or yourself, whatever, when it comes to that $10 million threshold?
We were talking before about that ability to be able to delegate,
Mm-hmm.
to have clarity. At that $10 million space, you now have teams around you
Mm-hmm.
facilitating very much that growth trajectory.
Yeah.
Because to get to that point, you've already learned that you cannot do it by yourself. We're human beings. There's such a thing as human capacity.
Yeah.
So if you're always hands-on, you relinquish that capacity. You're worried about
It's almost
relinquishing control,
that's
but
such
what you're doing
but
is
yeah, oh my gosh, that's so it's like
right,
it's a different mind shift. That's you're at capacity. Like you literally can't manage it.
right, and until that dynamic shifts,
That's a really good point. Because it's not a
and it's an internal shift. It's not external.
no, you're absolutely right. That's a really good point because it's literally no one can manage at that level.
No, you absolutely cannot.
There, it's
and,
almost
and even
it's,
those steps towards it, you're going to feel that pain.
yeah,
And unless you do something about it, and you have to internalize it first, you have to be willing to say, we need to do this different.
Mm-hmm.
And then find whatever it is, you know, businesses at that level, they don't operate on an island by themselves. They just
Right.
don't. They can't.
Right.
And it goes back to that human capacity.
But you know what's crazy too? Like it's very hard to even just have a small business, like a solopreneur business, like
Mm-hmm.
even a graphic designer, right? They have a bookkeeper, they have all of these tech tools that they've automated the process of things.
Yeah.
With my team of 4, and we have about 30 consultants that work with us, subcontractors, I'm finding myself like needing an Instacart. You know, I have a cleaning lady. Like I have routines around my beauty, like, and it has to be a good routine, you know,
Yeah.
like because you cannot do it if you are creating any type of system for one person or $10 million, $100 million business, you have to delegate at some point.
You do. This
Like
is an
running a
interesting story.
business by yourself or with a bunch of people, you know?
I remember when I was starting my financial planning practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a coach at that time too.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget, he came up to me one day and he was complimenting on some of the successes that we had had. And he said, do yourself a favor. He goes, in the next 3 months, I want you to do 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to take a luxury vacation. I want you to buy a new car. And I want you to hire a cleaning lady. And I, okay, why?
Those all are sound like now on the other side of it, I know why
Yeah,
he told you to do
right?
that, but at the time I could see.
Well, the financial practice was growing so quickly
Mm-hmm.
that I needed that shakeup.
Yep.
He could see where it was going literally minutes before I did.
Yep.
And that's kind of when I started to learn about human capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So be able to think at a high level, and especially if you have to be creative or strategic,
Yep.
that's brain. That's all logical,
Yeah.
methodical
Oh
thinking,
yeah.
right? And it's intense.
And people don't get that.
No.
And I'm exhausted. You're exhausted at the end of the day. It's like I may not have physically worked, but I am physically exhausted.
Oh, absolutely.
My brain is problem solving all day. That is the exercise.
It is. It's exhausting for your body to be able to be on like that.
Yeah. And managing a team, and it's a lot.
Absolutely. So that's one of the conversations that I have with the entrepreneurs that I work with that are functioning at that high level. I start looking at their personal life, start asking questions about their personal life. You know, tell me about your day. If they've got kids, well, is that a priority for you? Well, of course it is. Okay. Well, it's not a priority on your calendar.
That's crazy that you literally just said this because I just had a therapy session about this. My business therapist literally said your problem is your personal system right now. The reason you're overwhelmed. It is not the business itself. It is your personal system. And
Yeah.
I am literally in the process of changing my personal system. That's crazy that that's where you're
One
bringing.
of the most important things that I can do as a coach and a consultant and as an educator in this business space is help people understand how to regain control of what they want in their lives. And we talk about those things. Business is personal.
Yeah,
It
that
is.
was
At
one of the
this level,
hardest things to
business is
learn. Yeah,
personal. And I only work with the owners and the leadership team.
yeah,
Now they bring me in sometimes to maybe implement with their staff and things like that. But when it comes to the heart and soul of coaching, I'm working with the business owner.
mm-hmm.
They have to be right for that business to be right. And honestly, I'm a creature of it too, because for me, my home life needs to be okay for me to be okay.
Yep.
If if there's some dynamic that's not right in my very personal life, then I can't be at 100%, sometimes 110%,
Yep.
that we need to function at.
I love that.
I need.
So this is interesting. You're talking about personal life and professional life, being a leader, being C-suite, or owning your own company. What it sounds like you need to wind down a little bit. We all do. At least that's what I know I want to. It's Friday night. I want to wind down. So what is going on with Biz Wine Down? Tell us about that. Oh God. So tell us about Biz Wine Down.
Well, most people, when I tell them about Biz Wine Down, like, how did you get from there to there? But for the conversation we just had, it seems like a natural transition.
It's a perfect transition.
It really is.
Blending personal and professional.
And that's what Biz
way.
Wine Down is all about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really it's a community that we're trying to create,
Mm-hmm.
where business owners, entrepreneurs have a safe place to share ideas, to get information, to vent if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But we do it in a way where we're celebrating entrepreneurship. We're celebrating the successes, and we're celebrating the challenges too.
I love that. And I think the thing for me, because I've been to some of your Biz Wine Down events, is, excuse me, I've met so many different people and actually gotten business for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a camaraderie there and conversations that are very authentic that I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs get on a weekly basis.
I'm sure they don't.
And so how long have you been doing Biz Wine Down?
We started it in the fall of last year. It's we get together once a month.
Mm-hmm.
We do it at the Cellar Door here
Mm-hmm.
in Downers Grove. They've been a great collaborative partner.
Okay.
And it's just a comfortable, casual collaboration and conversation.
I love that. So I hear a little birdie told me that you're expanding Biz Wine Down. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Gosh, actually, it's really expanding in so many levels. So, well, the one thing is the podcast.
Yes.
Right?
Biz Wine Down podcast.
Yep.
Yes.
So out of our monthly events, we're going to continue to have more casual conversations, business advice. We're going to talk to some really interesting people about business and entrepreneurship. So we're doing those types of things. And we're doing some pop-ups in the city too. So I'm super excited.
So we're going to Chicago.
We
That'll
are.
be really cool. Hopefully, like the city pop-ups, we can do different, or you can do different cities in the future.
Yeah.
Because I think Biz Wine Down has a very fun, relatable entrepreneurship component no matter where you are in the country. So that's really cool. Well, I love that.
I do too. I feel so good about the direction that we're going.
Mm-hmm.
It's become a community,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely collaborative. And those are some of the dynamics that we've changed internally,
Mm-hmm.
just so that business continues to be an enjoyable process.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we can engage with other people and give them tips and ideas,
Mm-hmm. And the best part too is wine always relaxes everyone and gets people talking a little bit more.
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not encouraging everybody to tip back on a regular.
I mean,
but,
you know,
if it's a glass of wine and a conversation and it makes you feel better about business and life and going forward, it's well worth it.
I love that. And from what I hear too, you have a new magazine coming out. You're rebranding, and now it's the Biz Wine Down magazine.
Absolutely. And again, it's celebrating that entrepreneurial life. Most people don't know that I'm actually a trained sous chef.
Oh, I did not know that. That's really cool.
So
that's super cool.
But it's one of those talents that I've never really expanded on.
Well, now we can.
And now we can. So.
Sandra's Kitchen. Sandra's Kitchen coming to you live 2025. No, I'm kidding. She's not starting her own kitchen, but well, Sandra, it was so nice talking to you today. This is great. Thank you for giving us some tips, and I'm sure it's Friday, so you're gonna have some more wine and
I'm
wind down.
Definitely gonna wind down.
You're gonna wind down. On that note, thank you guys, and have a great day.